All right, so it's time for exercise 4 for our exercises on the Adobe Illustrator class, the VISC 216. This is a clock. These are actually pretty simple to make. They look, if you don't know the little techniques, it's really difficult to make, but this is really simple if you know the technique. We're going to click on exercise 4 layer. So I've already created this layer. We're going to lock the other layers that we've done, maybe even turn them off. So this is the template behind there. So that's why you see those elements. So we're on exercise 4. First thing we want to do is probably fill the background with a pattern. But to do that, we're going to have to take the square from one of the square layers, or from the squares layers we created for exercise 1 and 2, unlock that, choose the item that you need to copy, which these are groups. I'm going to double click to go into isolation mode. Now I have this selected. I'm going to copy that, double click to get out of isolation mode, lock the square layer, go into the exercise 4, go to object or edit, paste in front. Again, it puts it in isolation mode like it did in the exercise 3. And we're going to dump that isolation mode layer. So now I have a rectangle in exercise 4. Now this rectangle will be filled with a default color or default pattern swatch. If I bring up my swatches panel, it's here because I've already played around with this, but let's figure out how to get to those. So in the flyout menu on the swatches panel, you'll see open swatch library and patterns. So as far as which pattern it is, I think it's under decorative. I can't remember exactly. So I'm going to go to decorative legacy, and here are all the patterns. These are defaults. And it may be in here, it may not be. I should have tried to remember before I started, but I don't see it in here. It's not in decorative legacy. So let's try another one. Now you can make your own patterns, of course. We just did one a second ago with the exercise 3, but these are some that are built in to the software. And guys, there it is. It's called Pompadour, and it's under the Vonster patterns. So you can click on that and it will fill it with that pattern, and it'll also put that pattern in the swatches panel. Okay. Now I would recommend that you build your own patterns versus using default patterns, just so you know. All right, so that pattern is filled, and it's kind of creating a mess there. So we'll go into layers and we'll just turn that rectangle off for just a minute. Okay. Now, because we have a square here, we'll know exactly where the center is on that square. So we're going to get we're going to have this clock centered in there. So we're going to grab the rounded rectangle tool, or not rounded rectangle. We're going to grab the ellipse tool. We're going to find center. Now, when it says center, which right now it's got a little pink thing that says center, I'm going to click, hold down the Alt key, and drag out a square, or a circle, excuse me. That circle is, let's see. Oh, it's filled with a pattern. I'm like, what is going on here? Let's fill that with default fill stroke. That way we don't have all that mess going on. Okay. And I did turn off the other one. I should probably lock it as well. I'm going to fill this with none and see what's going on. We can probably with that, maybe thicken it up a little bit. And that's fine. We'll just draw another circle inside of it. So we're going to select that pattern, or that path. Let's see if we can get our layers panel up and make sure it's selected. And for some reason, it's not showing it's selected, but it is selected. Let me save here. And we're going to copy it and kind of put it on top of itself with a brown stroke. So we're going to go to object and we're going to transform it. And that way it'll copy it and scale it. Okay. So we're going to scale it and copy it. Now we're going to take it down, I don't know, 95% or so. And looks like we need to take it down about 96. I want it to overlap and touch. And we're going to hit copy. And on that stroke, we're going to make that a light brown. Let's see what color we got here. I'm going to turn that off and see what our element looks like. Yeah, pretty decent brown. And that's the fill, not the stroke. So let's flip the fill stroke here. Make sure that's selected. Flip that. Select it and flip it. There we go. Now we got it going on. And if we have to resize it just a little bit, we can always double click on the scale tool, take it down like 99%, uniform, and hit OK, assuming it's selected. Geez. 99. Okay, just wanted to reduce it down just a little bit. I'm going to fill with none so we can see what's underneath there. Now, I suppose you might argue that we could, gosh, why am I working so hard, right? We could argue that this has, this could be an object with multiple strokes on it. So let's go ahead and practice that for a minute. I'm thinking, why should I have to draw this thing 20 times? So we're going to try, we're going to, in theory, practice something. We may get rid of those here in a moment, but let's find the center, hold down the Alt key and draw the first one out. And that one would be filled with none for now and stroked with black. So we're going to take that stroke up just a smidge. Now, instead of doing multiple circles, I'm going to hide these other paths for just a second. Instead of doing multiple circles, let's consider doing one circle with multiple strokes on it, because we do know how to do that using the appearances panel. So let's work smarter, not harder. So let's go under window. Let's go to appearance. Let's duplicate this stroke. We'll fill this later. We'll duplicate this stroke by clicking and dragging to the plus sign. And this one's going to be underneath the black stroke. So we're going to click on this here, this one that's underneath. And it looks like it's going to be a little bit thicker. And it's going to be a different color. So I'm going to choose any color of brown right now just to see what's happening. And that stroke, again, I need to go to the appearances panel. Window appearance. I got to recall which is it's the circle with the dots around it. This stroke may have the alignment set to the exterior. Okay, so this may have to come down just a smidge. So that way it doesn't get too out of hand as far as its thickness goes. This was a little bit darker brown. So I'm going to choose that color here. A little bit darker brown. Now I'm going to duplicate that stroke in the appearances panel by clicking and dragging it to the plus sign. And it's underneath the, you want to go kind of from the front to the back. So this goes, we're doing with the bottom one. And that stroke color is going to be this kind of light tan. And we're going to increase the size of it quite a bit. And you can't see it because it's the same color. And we can make this a little bit different color so you can see. But we can make that so it fills in that next area. Okay. And again, that's going to be that lighter color. Now to get the next stroke, again, we're going to duplicate this one. And we're going to go to the bottom one. And we're going to make that the darker brown again on the stroke color. We're going to have to increase the stroke size so we can see it. And then we're going to move on and do that one more time, duplicating the stroke, using the bottommost stroke. I'm going to make this one black. And then we're going to increase it until we can see it. Okay. So if we were to turn off the background template layer, you'll see this is one object with multiple strokes. And we do want to fill that with a color. And that was a fairly light color. And it may not even be that color. So I may have to sample from the image. So if I have to, I'll turn the template layer on. Let's see what we got out here. I'm going to turn this exercise layer off. And because I don't want to move anything, sometimes I'll cheat a little bit. I'm going to turn that exercise layer back on, turn off the, unlock it, turn off the circle, draw a separate circle out here. This is just for sampling, and grab that color just to make sure I've got the right color. Turn back on my original and make sure it is filled with this color. Now, you don't want to just sample the color, because what it'll do is it'll take all the strokes. Oh, I was assuming it would take all the strokes off. Let's see if it did. Nope, it didn't. That's great. So it did the color fill, and it's still got all those multiple strokes on it. Let's go to the appearances panel and see. And that's window appearances. I closed that out. And yep, it still has all its strokes on it. So there's a little cheat that I did in drawing that circle and doing what I did. Okay, now we're ready to put the face on the clock. So we're going to go back to the layer panel, and I am going to turn this ellipse off for just a moment. And these I'm going to leave those for now. They're perfectly center, so I know where to click. I'm going to also turn off the rectangle, turn on the template. Okay. Okay, so we're going to draw now the face of the clock. Pardon me, I had to take a break for a moment. We're going to use the line tool, line segment tool, and I'm just going to hold down the shift key so it'll line perfectly center, draw a line. Now, as far as the color of the line goes, it looks like it's something that's a default color. So we'll just pull, say, this color here. Now we want that to be at the 12, 3, 6, and 9 points on the clock. We'll make sure this is thick enough too. Let's go to layers, turn off our template layer. That's way too thin. So we're going to thicken that up, round it, and thicken it. Make sure it's the right color. So let's see what we have. When I look at the two, it could be, it looks like it's about right. Might be one lighter. You can always pull it down and look. Nope, it's the same as what I had before. Okay. Now we're ready to copy that and flip it all the way around. So again, I'm going to use the rotation tool here. We've talked about this before. We find center, we hold down the Alt key and click. Now this will just be a 90-degree rotation. Here is where it went from top to side. I'll hit copy and hit Control D. Now we have a bottom one, and Control D again. Now we have one on the 3 o'clock. Now, what I typically will do when I have these other angles, because I don't want to draw from here, I'm not sure I'll get the angle right. I'll use the original segment, make it a different color, copy and paste on itself. First off, copy it, paste in front, make it a different color, shorten it a little bit. Oops, let's use the direct selection tool for that. Let's try that again. There we go. And now we're going to get it to go to the right angle, correct angle. So click on the path, choose the rotation tool, find the center, alter, option click. And now we're going to do 360 degrees, which is a complete circle divided by, we got 12 segments. So let's put 12 and see what happens. Click preview, and you see it popped it over here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit copy. And I'm going to hit Control D until I get them all the way around. Now you'll notice that then I need to delete the original one. And there's probably one behind these as well. But since they're behind there, I'm not too worried about it. So I'm going to turn off the template layer. And let's see what we have. Yep, it looks pretty good, doesn't it? Now we're ready to create the center of the face of the clock and the hands. So we're going to find the center, hold down the Alt or Option key, click and drag, flip the color fill, increase that a little bit. Oops, I only have one element selected there. Let's try that again. Let's get this. I'm just trying to make it about the same size as what's there. Wow, this is really small increments, but oh, it's because we're in a larger piece. I'm like, boy, earlier it was the smaller increments and it worked because the tininess of the trees in the snowflake. This is a much bigger object, so I can use bigger numbers. All right, so we got those. Now we're going to do the hands of the clock. I'm going to hide this just for a second. The hand of the clock, I'm going to start out with drawing it straight up and down, and we're going to use the ellipse tool from the center out till I hit about center here. And I will modify this. Let's scale that down just a little bit. This is going to be for the hour hand. So I'm going to convert this anchor point here to a point. And then for the bottom anchor point here, it's on a black layer. So let's double click on exercise 4, change that because I'm on black. So something we can see against black would be yellow. There we go. And so I'm going to pull this handle out, widen it out a little bit. Hold on the Shift key while you do that. And make sure they also are the same distance. Looks like that comes to a different point. So I'm going to grab both of these anchor points, move them down just a little bit. And it looks like they also tend to pull in. I'll make this pink or pink or red so we can see it a little bit better against that light. So it does look like this does dip in just a smidge. Control Z. Pull this in one, another, feels better. And I'm going to use my transform tool to widen the whole thing. And I'll just recenter it. Something along those lines. Now I'm going to copy and paste that shape inside of itself and knock a hole out of it to get that central part. It looks like it needs to pull down just a smidge, doesn't it? Doesn't feel rounded up enough. There we go. So we'll copy and paste this thing in place. Edit, copy, edit, paste in front. Whoops. And then I'll go ahead and fill it with a different color so I can tell what I'm doing here. And I'll deal with the colors later as far as what to use. And then I'll resize it. And I'm just holding down Shift and Alt. There we go. This background one needs to be filled with black. So let's get the black swatch. This one, it doesn't matter what it's filled with because I'm going to knock it out of the other one. And I may resize that just a little bit more. Again, using the free transform tool, I hold down the Shift and the Alt, it will resize it and keep it aligned, basically. All right, so let's punch this hole out. That's called a clipping mask. Some people call it a compound path. It depends. Let's do a, or we could just, why not just go ahead and just use this shape builder tool. Hold down the Alt or Option key and minus it out. That's just easier. And now we're going to do a rotation so it'll fit where the 10 is. Now we do need to find the center. So this is going to be a little bit more difficult to manage. I'm going to hit Control Y and we're going to align this to that center X. And I'm going to hold down the shift key after I start clicking and dragging. We want to pivot it from this point here. So I'm trying to align that. So that way, let me zoom way in. This little X, which is the center point, is about center to the hour hand. So an equal amount of space above and below. That's pretty close. I'm gonna hit Control Y again, and then we'll zoom out. Now we want to rotate this from the center again. So I'm going to choose the rotation tool, find the center, see if it'll find the center. Again, this is why I oftentimes hit Control Y so I can find the centers of things. And I'm going to Alt click on that center, and this won't be a 30-degree of rotation. This will be a 60. It'll be double that. You can even put ×2 and it'll do the math for you. And it's got a 60-degree of rotation, and I'm going to hit copy, hit Control Y. And why did I hit copy? Because I want to use this for the minute hand as well. So I'm just going to resize it using the free transform tool, resize that. And it's okay. I'm not going to worry about if it's a little stretched looking. I mean, you can widen it just a smidge. Again, you'll want to recenter it optically onto a dial. So I'm going to hit Control Y again. Zoom in. All right, guys. I'm not sure why. Sometimes I can see center and sometimes I can't. There, now I see it in just a second ago. This I'm going to pull down. Again, I'm looking to kind of get a 50-50 split between the space above the little center point and below it. And when I'm happy with that, I'm going to choose my rotation tool, hold on the Alt or Option key, click on the center of that. And instead of a 60-degree rotation, I'm going to do a -60. Click Preview. Hit OK. That should put it at 10 minutes after. Control Y. There we go. Now let's take a look at our layers and see what we have going on. These are on the topmost layer, but I have the ellipse turned off. So let's turn that ellipse back on. And let's turn our rectangle back on. Let's turn off our template for a moment. And I think we more or less have it. So this is our 10 minutes after 10 on our clock and all the details that go with it. So this was exercise 4. Again, I've turned the template layer off, turned the square layer off. Yeah, it's all together. So that concludes how to do exercise 4.